Hello and welcome back. Today we will be doing a starting steps video for the freest country in Victoria 3 if you conveniently forget about slavery. We are going to be playing as the United States of America, kind of showing how we can start off really strong with them. We'll be talking a little bit about their unique companies, of which they have the best in the game, which will be a feature of the run, kind of continuing after the starting steps video. We'll talk about their unique IGs. We are going to talk about how they are a new world country, which involves a particular strategy of getting into someone's market, which is less of a problem for everyone else except for the United States, because the United States starts out as a great power, which means you can't join anyone else's market. Notably, this is in the open beta 1.5.5, where they have re-overhauled the way migration works, which now allows discriminated pops to migrate. This might not be intended. It seems to be the case that they are supposed to migrate at a lower value, but the pops from Xing and India really want to migrate, and so they are going to be really juicy for us to pick off, even though they will be discriminated in our country once they get there. Nothing new for the United States. And then we will also be talking about local economies, in regards to Mappy, which is the market access price impact modifier, and how this modifier that is newly introduced in 1.5 will affect where you build and what you build. And so, without further ado, let's jump in. Alright, first up, we're going to talk about the three companies in the United States that are very strong, which is Standard Oil, the United Fruit Company, and Carnegie Steel. Now, General Electric, William Cramp & Sons, and Ford Motor Company are all also in the United States, but we're not going to talk about them because these are the ones to write home about. Currently, railway throughput is an insane modifier to get on a company for their prosperity bonus, namely because railways start with no throughput, so the value of throughput is going to be way higher on them, because when you add 20% throughput to a building with zero throughput bonus, it's 20% more of a building, right? Minus the costs of labor, which are significant. And if you add that to a building that already has a 50% throughput, bringing it from 150 to 170%, it only adds effectively, relative to where you were before, 6.6%. And they are also a huge portion of your economy. You kind of really wish you didn't have to build as many, and so the railway building throughput will be really good because it will also give you more infrastructure. The railways are not the really profitable buildings, and so by clearing out a lot of your construction availability to not be tied down generating infrastructure, you instead will be able to build the profitable buildings that you want to be building. It is also tied in on oil, and it is now, as of 1.5.5, you can actually slot it in. The Carnegie Steel Company is going to be really strong for us early on. It does require that we, research open hearth process before we can get access to it, but this will also give us railway building throughput, in addition to construction bonuses and throughput bonuses on both steel, or both coal and iron, which is particularly useful, but also steel. We'll probably be using generic steel as well. And then into the late game, we might be getting a little naughty with this minus 25% infamy decay. Notably, this 20% plantations throughput bonus seems really substantive and large. Of course, it's paired with the infamy decay, but if we decide to be a bad boy and get some wee-woos outside, then this will be particularly strong into the late game. Next up, we have unique IG considerations. Now, they do have a rural folk that by the time 1.5 will be released will have a new ideology, but for now they do have the unique frontier expansion, which makes them not mind at all colonial resettlement. Also, they do have this bonus on their planters, so rather than getting a bonus to the investment or the reinvestment, this 30% loyalist from standard of living increases, which is going to be pretty good for us here in the early game because we will be able to generate a lot of loyalists. We will be triggering the Civil War, and so we will first make these guys happy, and then we'll make them mad. Mainly they will be mad because we will be banning slavery in order to provoke this Civil War. But this 30% bonus is pretty nice, and you could do an agrarian run as the USA. That makes sense, especially with the United Fruit Company, which we mentioned, because 20% throughput on all of your plantations, that's cotton, coffee, tea, dyes, silk, just everything that's a plantation, is a particularly strong effect, but this will be nice in the early game for us to be generating this sort of thing. Also, what we will be doing is we will be forcing a market liberal instead of John Calhoun. What we will first do is we will look to see if we can recruit a general or an admiral that has the market liberal ideology. We see that we want someone who is a southern planter that has the market liberal ideology. So we will first clear out, the petite bourgeoisie in this guy, and we are in particular going to be looking for a market liberal ideology on these guys. If we cannot find one, we will just re-roll the run, because we in particular really do want this market liberal boyo. And so we will keep searching, we will restart the run if we need to, and then we will exile each of the 2 starting guys that are southern planters. And what this will do is, as long as we have positive popularity on the market liberal whom we find, then what it will do is it'll make it so that this next guy becomes the leader of the party, and we are going to use that instead of this slaver to pass laissez-faire, as well as free trade in the early game here, which will help us out quite a lot, especially because laissez-faire is significantly buffed, where it now gives +1 max number of companies, which is going to help us out a lot here in the early game. So after one reroll, we have found our dear Hazen Kuhn, who is a market liberal. Now, it is important to emphasize, in order to roll a market liberal, you need to have research stock exchange. We start out with it. And also, you need to have the industrialists demarginalized, so they can't be marginalized. And then you also have a higher chance of rolling it, in particular, if you have an urban center over the size of 10, which we do. And so it's not that hard for us to re-roll for this in particular. But what we will do is we are going to first reform the government. We are going to slot out all of these southern planters and such, and now we can exile this dissident. So we're going to exile him, and the guy who comes in is the new boyo we got, because as long as they have positive popularity, it seems to be the case, that they will just always pick from one of your generals or admirals, and if there's only one available, which this is the only general or admiral who was a southern planter, now he's in charge. So what we will do now is we will reform the government, we'll do a little bit of this, and then we will be passing laissez-faire straight away. Now, for our authority, what we have done is we are putting in a consumption tax on services and luxury furniture. Notably, luxury furniture would not yield us the most money, but we do not want to tax either tobacco or liquor, which would yield us more, because these disaffect lower rung pops more than taxing luxury furniture, which is going to overall help our SOL, even if it gives us slightly less money. We are also putting down kind of some edicts early on in Pennsylvania. We will likely scale these back, but all of our building, at least early on, is going to be in Pennsylvania. We will building a lot of resource industries, and so we're going to go road maintenance and encourage resources there, as well as greener grass campaigns, because we do want to try and get as much migration here as possible. There is this sort of effect in New World countries where there is going to be this unused arable land modifier that really is what pulls people in instead of, standard of living and available employment. It dilutes out the efficacy of available employment. And so normally when you build tall in some place, you get a lot of extra migration there, but that's really not going to be the case for us. And it's really not going to be the case for New World countries in general, because you have such a big modifier from your unused arable land. You will be pulling people to everywhere, and so this is going to be a point that you want to be aware of. Oops, accidentally unpaused there for a second. Now, diplomacy is where things are going to get a little bit weird here. First of all, we're going to move some diplomatic interests. We in particular do want to have an interest in Indonesia, because we're going to go after Brunei, South Africa, because we are going to go after Zulu into Transvaal and Orania, and then also North China, because we do want to piggyback the UK's war at the start of the game. And so these will kind of be our diplomatic interests, but what really is going to be a bit strange is we are going to rival everyone. We're going to rival everyone we can. Everyone's going to become our rival, and which is, of course, not very nice of us. We're not the nicest bag. And then we're going to improve relations with Great Britain, Russia, and Texas specifically. These are the key ones you want to improve a relation with. France, to a lesser extent, and Spain are also okay. We're going to also improve with Brazil, because we're not planning on going after Brazil at some later date, and we're going to go after some of these guys as well, just kind of improving relation all over the place, which might seem a little bit strange. Why are we improving relations with a bunch of people we really just don't care that much about? Because, we would just want to apologize to everyone for rivaling them. We want to say, sorry, we didn't mean it, my bad. And what we will get here is this minus 42% prestige malice, which is, terrible. So terrible, it's probably going to decay us into a major power, which then we can join someone's market if we're a major power, which is the entire idea here, is we are trying to decay ourselves down so that we can join someone's market, so that we can siphon off their pops. Now, the best one to really go for is going to be going for Russia, I think, in the metagame before 1.5.5, which is allowing discriminated migration. And so you are going to want to go for Russia if they nerf it, or discriminated migration no longer works, and this type of thing. And what you will want to do is you will want to instead declare an interest in the Caucasus, because Russia will come from Circassia eventually, and you just join on their side of the war. You do a large volume of trade with them, which is what we're going to do with the UK, because we'll be joining the UK instead, and you will eventually be able to get in the UK's market. Now, the Russia has placate the masses, conservative agenda, acquire colonies as their strategies. UK almost always has economic imperialism, and so getting into their market is extremely easy. Getting into Russia's market is hard, but you can use this strategy to get into Russia's market, and it is important to emphasize you just want to do as much volume of trade as possible with Russia in order to facilitate this. However, we are going to try and get into the UK's market. That way we can get those tasty Bengali pops, because currently the migration controls in the British East India Company do not work, or they don't limit migration enough as they should be doing, and so we're going to be going in the UK's market instead, even though Russia's market would be memeier and is also achievable. It is just a little bit difficult to do. But what we're instead going to do, just to give an example, is anything that is like really expensive and we can provide, we're going to export to their market, and anything that's really cheap from their market, we're going to import from their market, and this will help us to be able to join their customs union later on. Now, an important other feature is we have to have no subjects in order to ask to join a customs union. If you come in here, we can propose a trade agreement. We can't ask to join their customs union yet, but if we did have that button available, it would say we're already in a customs union, because we have a customs union of our own in which the Indian territory is a subject. So what we're going to do as our very first war also is we are going to annex them. 38% chance they say yes, and then we're going to talk about our local economies. They didn't say yes. Tragic. So we'll just have to go after them. We'll just assign a guy to the front. They don't have any troops, so this should be short work. Now, in regards to where we're building, we are just going to first get our construction sectors in here in Pennsylvania up to level 10, and then we are going to push as fast as possible logging camps up to level 11, and also iron mines up to level 11 in order to unlock these companies which require us having level 11s. This is going to be something we do. We are also going to come through and fix PMs as much as possible. This one will create a demand for silk. We will import that likely from the UK, so we can help get into their market. And this is something you want to do kind of with every game. We're going to do precision tools, namely when we get to wood. That is going to be perhaps the interesting one. We will also want to, we're already on free churches anyways, and we could swap to public trains, but I don't know if the swap is possible at this point because we do not have much engine production. We're going to put that in, which is going to cause... Let's actually not put that in right now. Why don't we put in Master of Compromise here? And what we are going to do is we are going to switch to softwood production. Currently, too much hardwood is produced, and we are instead going to select 2 states that we want to produce hardwood in, and we want to switch from Merchant Guild owned, because shopkeepers only give 5% of their dividends to the investment pool, to privately owned, because capitalists give 20% of their dividends to the investment pool, so we're just going to swap those over there. And then we are going to specifically come into New York, and we're going to swap them to focused hardwood production, because we will be building ships here and furniture here, and we already have a lot of furniture in Pennsylvania, and so we are going to want to make sure that we do have some local hardwood, at least for now, kind of doing the more compromised but less efficient hardwood production there. Eventually, we will want to build a ton of furniture in Pennsylvania and have that as well as in New York. Now, as it comes to modifiers, we have a lot of hardwood output modifiers, and so I think eventually in all these states that have hardwood output modifiers, we want to be producing hardwood, and in no other states will we be producing hardwood unless there's, for some reason, hardwood starts to get expensive. We'll probably try and export it pretty aggressively. Now, The reason we're building in Pennsylvania early on is because they have access to a very large amount of iron and coal and logging, and they are going to be really good on the point of local prices and Mappy. When we are building, an industrial base, we want all of the stuff to be in the same state. We want the tools to be where the mines are, and then the steel to be where the tools are, and then the mines to be where the steel is, right? Because these will make it so that our prices are more even. Normally, if you only have the mines in one place and they're feeding into steel mills in another place, the mines will have to sell at a lower price, and the steel mills will have to buy at a higher price, which is going to eat into your weekly balance really, really hard. And so we are trying to avoid doing that, and so this is why we are going to be building in Pennsylvania specifically, and we will be building up also because we want to get to level 11 in logging, iron, and coal so that we can gain access to companies. After this, we will be pushing the construction sector up to level 15, and then we will look to produce local economies elsewhere. Like, for example, Alabama is a particularly good state because they have access to lead as well. We will probably do it maybe more in New York initially. New York is going to be really good late game with this, both the New York Harbor modifier, but also the Niagara Falls modifier, which is not as good post 1.5 because now electricity is at this juncture currently a local good. And so that's kind of what we'll be doing in terms of diplomacy and that type of stuff. We are going to be really aggressively pushing the construction sectors, though, until we are basically not making any money here. Also, we do start out with a bunch of excess bureaucracy, so let's spend a little bit of that, increasing our education level 1, and then also incorporating all the states that we start off with that are not incorporated. Notably, they are going to be introducing a new law for, coming in here? They are going to be introducing a new law for your colonization, which currently we're on resettlement, which gives plus 50% migration attraction in incorporated states. What they will also be giving is a plus 50% attraction in unincorporated states, and the USA will start with this, but additionally you will only be able to colonize next to where you are. Currently we don't have that, and so actually it would be a good shout for us to get an interest in Zanj so that we can compete with the UK for Kenya. So let's also do that here, and we will be off on our way. I'm not sure I mentioned it earlier, but there is also a unique modifier regarding governments that are going to make it so that it trends towards only having a conservative party and a liberal party. A new party formation will have a malice, specifically if you are on presidential republic, which we are, and you have Dixie or Yankee as your primary culture, which we do. And so this is going to make it so that we do kind of have it set in a two-party system, as it were, as it relates to the USA. So we see that we do not currently yet have enough of a negative modifier to decay down to major powers. So what we are going to do here is we are going to also lower our government wages. If this doesn't work, and it should work, then we will also delete what little army we have. But as you can see here, now we are below 144, considerably so. And at 118, we will decay to a major power fairly soon here while we look to dust up the Native Americans in order to be able to join the UK's market. This Texas statehood journal entry is why we are improving relations with Texas, or why it's important. If the relations are greater than 20, we'll just straight up annex Texas, which of course is what we want to do. So we get a little bit unlucky here in that the UK has declared their war in South China instead of North China. Usually it's in North China. I suppose the strategy going forward is going to be to declare interest in both North and South China to try and piggyback their war. We're going to continue on anyways, but what we would have likely done is try and reverse sway our way in exchange for something like war reps or, transfer of a subject, something like this. Currently the system's not super tuned. This is definitely not tuned, allowing for you to get quite a lot more than you should have, and also getting a foothold in Qing when we know that the UK is probably going to do an okay job attacking them would have been useful, but we can get one anyways on our own, and so it's not too big a concern for us overall in the run. So we have completed our 11th logging camp, and it is time to slot in our first company. What this company is going to do is it's going to namely give us a construction bonus and a throughput bonus on top of the both wood and logging camps. But also, we should get the prosperity bonus here, which is going to give us additional infrastructure, which will be a little bit nice. We're going to establish that here, and we are going to be building 2 construction sectors. We built 2 in Virginia. We're putting 2 down in Alabama. You know, we do want to be at the point where we're losing money, which was kind of where we are right now. And then we will be pushing the iron mines to level 11. We're going to let this cotton plantation finish because it's almost done. And then we are going to build a single barracks in Pennsylvania, because we do want to mobilize an army out of here, and we want to use conscripts. And in order to do that, we do need to have level 1, and we want to have this be our offensive army, which kind of introduces these new mechanics that we have in 1.5.3 plus, which is that we have different unit types, namely the skirmish infantry or infantry writ large are giving a little bit of offense, a ton of defense. Artillery are overall going to be the strongest unit, giving us ton of offense, a solid enough amount of defense, and also kill rate and devastation. And also the Lancers aren't going to be that good, but they do give extra battle occupation, and so we will use them for landing squads. And so this will be kind of the way things go. Currently, what I think the metagame looks like is you build 100% artillery for an offensive army, 100% skirmish infantry for a defensive army, and you set 2 armies on a front, and you have 1 just defend and then 1 attack. Probably just putting in 1 to defend and letting them grind themselves down on that before sending the attacker, depending on, you know, the overall power level, this sort of thing. And then again, having a landing squad being a combination of both cavalry and artillery here. And so I think this is going to be the overall strategy but for now, we will kind of have our first American army is going to be our defensive army, and then the second American army is going to be our pushing army / landing army. And so we are going to be putting in some conscripts on Lancers and mobile artillery. Notably, you know, the system where we are starting with conscription is going to give us a ton of flexibility in determining, what exactly our composition is going to be, which is perhaps an advantage for USA in the early game. But we will be kind of revisiting this conceptually throughout this run, and a little bit more in this video. So we are finally at the point where we will be decaying into a major power. We notably had, in the kind of background, gotten a trade agreement with Great Britain as well. They are cordial, genial, and they will likely accept us once we decay. Oh no, we lost a power rank. How terrible. We are no longer a great power, but now we can join their customs union. Fantastic. This means we will be able to have subjects now, because you cannot ask to join a customs union. You cannot ask to join a customs union if you have any subjects. Now, you can join a customs union, but only if they invite you. This is basically a game bug, and so we will join their customs union, and then once they say yes, we will get these tasty migrants, which is absolutely fantastic. So let's just take a look and see what exactly is happening here. We're getting plus 50k migrants, or we receive a total of 900. Okay, let's just take a look and see if we start getting some Bengalis and this type of thing. We are currently getting immigrants from home counties. Maybe they fixed it or adjusted the numbers where they wanted them, but we will be getting in a ton of migration here into Pennsylvania as things go on, which is very much the entire point. If they fixed it, we would have wanted or preferred, if they fixed it so that Bengali pops could not migrate, then well, it looks like they did not. So we just don't have a what is it called, a cultural community yet for Bengali anywhere. But once we get one of these, we will be able to siphon off these tasty pops from the East India Company, which is why we joined the UK's market instead of Russia. Russia normally being a better source of pops because they have 58 million European pops as opposed to 25 million European pops. But if they don't need to be European, these guys do have 122 million pops, and so we're going to start siphoning them off, and we are just going to be inside Mummy's market for a while. We will receive taxation without representation, but we won't mind because we will be getting a ton of pops from them. We are also going to move the capital to New York here, which is going to be a much better capital in the long term, especially once it gets electricity up and going. And so this will give us minus bureaucracy, authority, and influence, which again, this minus influence can be a positive modifier if you're trying to join someone's market, which would have made it so that we did not need to renew the rivalries and put in more improved relations, which we did a couple times. But now that we're in the market, we don't really mind. Also, we can rival a whole bunch of people for Diplo, much more options than we would have, as a great power. We currently aren't looking to get a lot of Diplo, so it's really not that big a deal, but this is something to consider for us here. So we are about ready to finish our iron mine in Pennsylvania. This will be our 11th iron mine, and now we will be able to slot in the Iron Mine Company, which again is going to give us throughput and also a construction bonus. And so we are going to want to lean into these materials quite a little bit here. Now that we have this throughput and construction bonus, I think that we can look to push the construction sectors. We do have to push through the fact that we have expensive tools currently. So we do have a few more tools in the queue. We do have it on auto expand. Why don't we put an additional level? We'll check the infrastructure here as well, because infrastructure is always a concern, and we see that we are running low. So we're going to put a railroad, our first railroad, down in Pennsylvania, and then we will also put a motor industries down, because we do want to be building kind of an entire construction loop here. And so we want, the motor industries use the steel mills, and we do want to build steel tall here specifically because eventually we will get access to the Carnegie Company, which requires that we have a level 11 steel mill. And so we really don't want to build steel anywhere else until we get to level 11, and steel doesn't build that tall anyways. And so once we have this and open hearth process, which is quite a ways away, we will be able to slot in the very, very strong Carnegie Company. And so we will be kind of moving in that direction. Also, you get additional clout for in your capital, and now that we've moved the capital to New York, we're going to put the university up to level 5, and we're going to make sure we're on philosophy department so we can complete that journal entry. We always miss this one whenever we're starting a new run, because this is how we roll and when we're swapping over the PMs, but we do want to build tall in one place regarding our universities, and so New York is great for that purpose. We could have put the capital someplace that had sulfur so that we could get cheaper paper, knowing that we want to build a university there, but this seems fine enough, and especially because eventually we will be really benefiting from having the electricity here in the capital. Hey, good relations with Texas has paid off. We get Texas statehood. Welcome to America, we annex Texas. This will also allow us to establish a colony in Texas, which we want to do. And I just wanted to briefly explain why we're going into South Africa. It's because gold is really good, and a ton of gold will appear in both Transvaal and Orania. But not only this, but Transvaal and Orania will incorporate faster, and they will be, because they are European, or considered European, obviously problems, but we will also, they have coal and iron, and so they will build relatively well into the construction loop, although we do have a lot of states ourselves with both coal and iron combined, which is one of the features that makes America particularly strong. Here, why don't we show potentials on map, not production. You can see this is where all the coal appears, and then if we do the same thing for iron, you can see this is where all the iron appears, and so there's going to be significant overlap kind of in this area, and we are going to be able to build really there. Very, very nice in Pennsylvania. We will, after we kind of build a few more tooling workshops, I think what we will be doing is in Pennsylvania, we will be pushing the coal up to level 11, because while we do not have a third company available, we will get an additional one just as soon as we get laissez-faire, which we're pretty close to getting. I think that this laissez-faire rush is a little bit better than going for banning slavery immediately, and we might even do free trade at the same time here. Rather conveniently, Orania was swayed to the side of Zulu, so that'll save us some time, because now that they're supporting, we can of course just say conquer state on Versat. I think this is an area where you don't want to be making subjects, notably in 1.5, making subjects first and then annexing them later is a bit less efficient. It's one of the reasons why we didn't puppet Mexico at game start. Now I think it's really not worth the infamy to go for the protectorate Mexico, because you will be getting claims on them, and the claims, I think overall, make it cheaper to take the claims from them first, then protectorate them, then annex them if you wanted to go that route. And so do not protectorate Mexico on game start. We're going to wait until we get claims, which I believe happens once we get nationalism. Not too big a priority. We do really value the gold here, although there's gold in Mexico, but this war will be nice for us. Notably, we have mobilized our... we have mobilized this army here, which has 1 mobile artillery, yes, but they have 10 conscripts of mobile artillery and 7 conscripts of lancers. We will be using them to land and push, and hopefully they do a good job, and, Push. We finished the very important water tube boiler, and we have a little bit of a decision as to what to research. Nitroglycerin is a bit tempting. The explosive industries are a lot better. Nationalism is natural spreading to us, but I think we're going to go with pharmaceuticals and maybe into quinine, but mainly going pharmaceuticals because I think there's a good chance that in the near-ish future, we will want to pass, a health insurance law, and then quinine's always pretty good, and notably in 1.5, health insurance has been buffed in a number of ways. SOL is generally depressed, and so with depressed SOL, you're going to get more mortality, and it helps to reduce mortality, but not only that, it just straight up increases SOL, so let's find that here in just a second. Okay, it was down there. Notably, these now give plus standard of living and also minus effects from pollution, which is a new mechanic introduced in 1.5, which is going to be important for us to kind of clamp down on because at its very worst modifier, once it ramps up to 100%, which it's not anywhere close to at this point in time, it will be generating pollution impact 50% mortality and -3 standard of living and -10% migration, which is going to be a little bit of a problem, and so we might want to head that off. Currently, let's just double check real quick and see if we've gotten, hey, we now have a Bengali, cultural community here. So if we look at our migration, wow, that's overtuned. So the numbers will be adjusted, but for now, we will be getting absolutely obscene amounts of migrants coming in from, the British East India Company, as it were. If we take a look, we can kind of see now we're starting to take off quite a bit, and so this will be a bit of an interesting run. Assuming they nerf this, you do want to go in Russia's market instead, and you will still be able to siphon off a lot of pops, not anywhere near this number, yeah. That's a lot of migrants. So we finally finish our 11th coal mine here in Pennsylvania, and while this has obviously not been the most efficient way to expand because the iron mines are making way more, which we will now put on auto expand and put a few in the queue. We're going to put a railway first though, because I think we're going to need it. And now we will be able to slot in a new company in the coal company, and so now we have kind of our industrial base here. The generic steel company is very, very, very strong, but building up to a level 11 steel is not going to be efficient at all. It really won't deploy up, and also getting the bonus will be hard once we have built up to 11 steel because we will have a glut of steel. And so we'll take things a little bit slow for now and have this company set up, which I think is quite strong in the early game for just about everyone because these are all generic companies. And so, the USA doesn't necessarily have the strongest start when it comes to doing this sort of thing. It will be pretty strong. Also, we can pin it and put it in the outliner if we want in order to keep an eye on the prosperity bonus. We don't really care about our prosperity bonus too much on these companies. That's not really what they're about, but for example, on the generic steel company, which we'll just take a quick look at, the prosperity bonus is where it's at for them. For us, it'll be like USA Steel or something like this, Pennsylvania Steel Syndicate, which gives 10% state construction efficiency. Almost certainly this will be one of our companies, along with, we will probably, if we are on 3 companies, we will probably be looking to trend towards that. Carnegie Steel and Standard Oil, assuming, we get access to oil. So we will want to move in that direction of that technology relatively early. And so we will probably be hitting pump jacks earlier than we normally would. And so maybe we should be emphasizing in here the production tree just a little bit more. Now, we were going to go for banning slavery after we got in our 2 economic laws, but I think now is actually a really good opportunity to lean into our armed forces a little bit and go professional army. This will make the Civil War considerably easier for us while we were playing as the North, because this will kneecap their ability to raise militias, but also by going professional army, or now is a good time to go professional army because the rural folk are currently out of government and we're fully righteous, so we are getting really fast ticks on our law passes because we are up in here with extra enactment time, and also we are benefiting quite a bit from generating loyalists from SOL increases. We have a bit more loyalists than we would otherwise normally have, and while it is not necessarily huge, we are generating them in the upper strata, which is why we have, plus 10 approval, plus 3 approval, +4 approval. Now, of course, we do have some disapproval, but overall, this modifier is kind of helping us out at this moment, and so we don't mind taking a little bit of a detour to go for professional army first, because it should pass relatively quickly, or it should brick relatively quickly. It's only got 5% success chance, so it's somewhat likely to brick, but we do have this very big movement for universal suffrage, and this might be the way that we look to start triggering the landowners, just going universal suffrage into, you know, something a little bit more aggressive. We could even go universal suffrage now. We'll see how this goes. Right now, it's not high enough to really provoke a rev, but this very high, you know, this 64% radicalism. Let's see how much support this movement has. If it has, so it has 43 support, so we would want it to generate a little bit more support before forcing that in, but that might give us kind of a good basis on which to go after slavery, because we will be able to slot in a more legitimate government with some abolitionists and such. Looks like our Intelligentsia is not doing very good. This is probably a result of some of the IG attraction changes that they made with the clout, but we will probably be handling that by, in the capital, increasing the number of universities just a little bit more. Universities really benefit from throughput, so you kind of want to all put them in one place. Alright, so it looks like we're not going to succeed in passing professional army, but it was relatively painless because it didn't take that long. I think we're going to take a crack at universal suffrage, though. We do want to keep an eye on maybe being able to go back to monarchy for two reasons. One, we can do the Emperor Norton achievement, which requires that we have, you know, USA becomes monarchy with Joshua Norton as the monarch, and so we have to somehow get Joshua Norton in. I believe he might be rural folk, and so if he's rural folk, you know, it will suit us quite well to have universal suffrage in that way. Hopefully that doesn't brick too many things or make things too difficult, but another reason is this will make the clout such that we can, you know, move away from the landowners a little bit more. The landowners are currently really powerful, and they're super happy because we have passed, you know, a bunch of laws that this market liberal boyo really, really likes, and so we might be able to even do this. You know, I'm certain we'll lose our bonus, but I think we could be able to do this without upsetting them too much. Man, they're still at +20. Perfect. So now we will get this righteous government speed law pass in, and we will be kind of moving on up very, very quickly towards universal suffrage, you know, with a 44% chance off the back of this movement here. We've also started to build tall in Alabama, or at least are beginning the smatterings of it. We're adding more construction sectors there, and we're going to add local goods to supply those construction sectors, because this is also a particularly good Mappy state. You know, us having fully maxed out the construction sectors here, I really think this is the heuristic. You want to go for maxing out construction sectors in a particular place. We also have it on auto expand, and so it will try and pull towards like equilibrium or good levels here, but we will not be actively pushing quite so much in Pennsylvania anymore. Instead, looking to other areas. Notably, you can increase the cap from 15 to 20 if we research modern sewage, which might be something that we're interested in. I did want to showcase Louisiana as a state real quick, because it is the only state, I believe, in the United States that can produce rice. Now, rice is super overtuned right now because it's effectively 2 buildings for the price of 1, relative to 1.4, double outputs, double inputs, double laborers, but it still only occupies 1 slot, and it's still only 200 construction, and so it is effectively 2 buildings for the price of 1. So we will be building rice up big and tall. Here, we have it on auto expand. We are going to make sure that we have, you know, all of these on soil enriched, and we do now. But also, it has sulfur, which feeds nicely into fertilizer, which feeds nicely into the rice, and so this is going to be pretty good for us, and so this will be kind of a breadbasket-y state for us, and we will be looking to push up the grain here specifically, and maybe, you know, in other places, like maize is really not that good, a grain, but, you know, we might be able to focus on cotton and tobacco and this type of stuff in other areas while getting to focus on grain in Louisiana here as part of our strategy. Nice having this vertical integration between sulfur, fertilizer, and rice, specifically in Louisiana for the United States. So nationalism finished not spreading to us, notably modern sewage, which will give us plus levels on our construction sectors, or plus max level rather, is natural spreading to us, so that's nice. But what this manifest destiny will do is it will give us claims on all of this stuff, which is going to be super nice. It will result in us a diplomatic incident generating us 22 infamy, so we don't really need to click this button yet. It will also give us plus Southern Planters approval, which might come in useful if our guy dies before universal suffrage, but I kind of doubt he will. And so we are going to hold off on clicking the button until we're down below like 2-ish, or down in around 2 to 3-ish infamy. That way we don't go over 25 infamy. Notably, really don't want this diplomatic incident to make Mummy displeased, because if she kicks us out of the customs union, we will lose access to those tasty pops that we're currently sucking off. So this is going to be, you know, important so that we can continue to get this obscene level of migration in here. You notice there's more Bengali than Yankee. So if we click the culture map, yeah, it's now the Bengali place here in Pennsylvania. Truly, this is the best timeline where we get all the pops, and so this is going to be pretty good for us here. So knowing that we are going to want to do the Civil War soon, we are definitely going to want to take the events that give us plus approval on the non-Southern planters, because we do eventually need to provoke them, and currently they're very much the opposite of provoked. Now, they're the opposite of provoked because they really like us because they have a market liberal leader, and so if we just exile that guy, they're going to be big mad once that comes, but we do want to get on universal suffrage first, I think, here. We are also notably going after Peru, Bolivia, because I think it is one of the best conquests in the game. In addition to going after South Africa, Peru, Bolivia, it has a ton of resources. Eventually they merge, and you effectively get a discount on protectorating Bolivia. And then furthermore, on top of this, they have a really good company in Antofagasta that gives railway and sulfur, and we might not use it, but it's nice to have it around. And so, you know, resources, the fact that we can siphon off a ton of pops to here is also really nice because they does have a lot of attraction, so we will be looking to integrate them. Hopefully, if they siphon off too many pops, they'll actually be an expensive integration, but here we go. I guess we'll see how that goes. And it's still going to be one of the better places. They also have notably quite a bit of gold. It might not be discovered at this point in time. Yeah, you can see it. 6 gold mines, 3 gold fields. There should be some in La Paz. And so overall, just a very strong place to conquer, because you get basically a huge discount on what you're getting in terms of resources and arable land. It's very cheap, on top of having one of the better companies in the game. Why don't we just quickly pull up that company, because I think it's perhaps worth just pointing out. It's this one here, which gives 5% infrastructure and throughput on the railways and sulfur, which we discussed before why this is so useful. But 5% infrastructure on top of like this throughput on the railways is really going to make it so you don't have to build a lot of railways and can instead focus on more profitable industries. Okay, so we have been having some problems getting in on our landing and have massively expanded the landing party that we're using to get in. You know, this is kind of going to take some adjustment, getting used to, you know, having all these different units, which is, you know, interesting. We are kind of having a mix of mobile artillery and lancers. I know we said we were going to abuse and have 100% artillery armies, or very condensed artillery armies, but we might just strive for like a 50-50 split, because the dev said by the time 1.5 releases, it will be such that, you know, building 100% artillery armies won't be viable, so maybe we will make this sort of adjustment, but right now I do think that we will finally be able to get in now and start to push into them. And once we land with our offensive army, what we're going to do is we're going to have a defensive army come in as well and sit only on defense, and by doing this we hope that the defensive army will be able to catch their pushes into us while our offensive army gets to push into them. We also hit a bit of what we were waiting for, is the new election under, you know, kind of our situation where we want to get rid of slavery, and now that we have universal suffrage, we should have a much easier time banning slavery, and we see the evangelicals, industrialists, and trade unions are the ones who support this, and so we will look to have a very popular government that is going to be down with getting rid of the discrimination here. And so we will go into that, which will of course make in addition to us actually wanting to get rid of slavery, it will trigger, and I mean trigger, the southern planters, and they will pop a rev. And I do believe that they will be large enough to actually have a substantive revolution. Armed forces are no longer industrial, and we do see radicalism. It is critical. Now, hopefully we want to be able to dust up this this war and, finish it up before we get this rev. But even if we don't, even if we can't, Mummy will almost certainly, since we're inside of our customs union, help us out with our civil war. And so our civil war should be pretty easy to win, and we should be pushing in pretty quick here. And so I think everything will be A-okay. Also, all hail Bengali, Pennsylvania. God bless. I think we're going to conclude the episode here. Namely, we did focus on getting inside of the UK's customs union for the primary purpose of siphoning off migrants, which was going to be of great assistance. And we did pop this American Civil War. We will be doing the American Civil War later on. We also emphasized, how we were building tall in Pennsylvania specifically, in order to abuse particularly, or to be less disaffected by the local price mechanic, which encourages you to build everything vertically integrated. And by having our construction sectors, which create all the buy orders for this, and also the sell orders in the same places, because we're selling iron here, everything is more efficient. We do have this American Civil War pop. That will be kind of what we're focused on next episode, and hopefully we can get in here. It does look like we do have a positive battle going into La Paz, and so hopefully we can enforce and protectorate them, and then bring our troops back home to deal with this civil war. We notably emphasized not building too much in places that were not part of where we thought would be the Union, with the exception of Louisiana, which we thought was going to secede but didn't. And we've been building here particularly all of the cavalry, because this is going to be the bread basket or rice basket of America. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and other than that, have a good day.